Suit up, strap in, warm the tires, and leave on yellow. Time for the MitsuTimes Podcast, presented by MitsuTimes.org, the home of the fastest Mitsubishi cars. With your host, Josh.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the MitsuTimes Podcast. My guest today is Mr. Alan Becker. He is part of a race team called Crash Management, and they have a very cool Dodge Stratus RT powered by the 6G74 that we're about to talk about. Alan, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing wonderful. Thanks first for having me and hope you're doing well.
I am doing great. Love having you on. Love people doing something different. I think that's kind of part of Mitsubishi culture as a whole. So to have you on and to hear about this car is really an honor. And I hope that maybe we can inspire some other people who, maybe have a Stratus or have the 3G Eclipse closely related. And, maybe they don't feel like they have a car that they can go out and do any type of motorsports with. And maybe this podcast will give them a little bit of inspiration, a little bit of motivation to get out there and to, make a few laps or make some modifications to their car.
Absolutely. We've been on the Stratus kind of board for a long time, and the first people's reactions that they see a Dodge Stratus, how random it is, but with proper development and with anybody with this 3G Eclipse or Stratus, the opportunity is there to build a truly competitive car in a track setting.
For sure. Now the one that we're going to talk about today is, like I hinted at in the beginning, pretty far from factory form. So I want to start with, telling the listeners about the team, who they are, and what series that you guys use the Stratus to compete in.
All right. So currently, our primary series we run in is called the Lucky Dog Racing League. As you've already mentioned, Alan Becker, the car owner and driver, one of the drivers for the Crash Management machine. We do Lucky Dog Racing, Champ Car, and a few kind of random track days throughout the year. Our team does include a crew chief. That's my father. His name's Wally Becker. And we have another full-time driver on the team. His name's John Morse.
Okay. So obviously you and your dad, obviously have a relationship already prior to this race team, but how did the rest of the team come together? How did John become part of the group? And, when we're going out on the race weekends, what role is each person playing? Like, obviously your dad's the crew chief, but who's checking the tires and, checking the fuel and doing all this stuff and making sure the car is ready to go?
Sure. Well, each individual does have a significant role throughout the entire race day. First, I kind of met John actually from drifting. I had a big turbocharged BMW E36 that I just decided to show up to these drift days locally. And there was this guy that kind of parked behind me in my trailer, and he was all by himself. He popped out a tent, he pulled out a jack, and he was just working on his own car, minding his own business. And that was my kind of guy. So we got to meet, and he found out then that, on the side I raced this Dodge Stratus, and like everybody kind of thinks it's a joke at first, and it just turned into he came to my shop, and he fell in love with the entire idea of endurance racing, and that was probably 7 or 8 years ago now, and he's been my best friend, part of the team since.
That's awesome. I love those kind
roles. The roles that everybody plays throughout the weekend, though, is when we get there, the family plays a huge part in providing us the food and drinks and pit stop. Everybody, when the car comes in, driver gets out, we start fueling the car. There's a fire extinguisher, there's a tire pressure guy, we're checking to make sure the car's full of oil. Everybody's moving around, and we designate, Wally designates that role in between every pit stop to make sure everyone's focused and on their game so we can get out on time.
That's awesome. I definitely love the family affair aspect of the team for sure.
Absolutely. When we first started, say 2015, it really truly was a family affair. My two brothers drove the car, and my dad was crew chief still, and we would do Road America once a year, and that's where I'm from in Wisconsin. I have 45 people from my family show up all to this race, and it'd be a family reunion. So that was a truly special part of it.
Awesome. So this Stratus that you have now, it's one of seems like quite a few that you've had in the past, or maybe it's just one evolved. I'm not really sure.
I've actually had several. The history does go again deep back in 2006.
Okay.
Um, I was getting my second car. I went to a local auto auction, and my only rule to myself was I just wanted a manual car. And I'm walking around this entire auction lot, and I'm just looking through the windows, see what's a manual, and I came across this one car. Like, it's a manual. I take 3 steps back, and I'm the Dodge Stratus. I've never even heard of this. And I drove it around the lot, and it drove good. Long story short, I ended up buying it back in 2006, and the rest is history. That was probably three. I've had 3 or 4 Stratuses since.
Okay. And obviously, it was kind of a love at first sight after you kind of got into it and got to get used to the car.
It really was love at first sight. I always, and even after that, I knew the Stratus was underrated. I knew it could win something. I just never knew what. And after learning how to get involved with wheel to wheel road racing, I took the knowledge that I had and just built a car.
Okay. So after all those several other Stratuses, we're to this one now, this 2001 RT. What was it about this car in particular that you had to have as part of the fleet?
The the performance of it was exceptional when compared to these other cars in the field. Big hindrance it being front wheel drive, but sometimes that became an advantage with these kind of lower powered cars.
Mm-hmm.
So adding it to the fleet was almost just second nature. I raced with a BMW team somewhat professionally for like 3 years, and in that series I realized like my street car can keep up with these, I think. And then that's when I really truly decided to build a race car out of a Stratus after running with a BMW for 3 or 4 years.
Okay. Now, like I hinted at earlier, this particular one is pretty far from stock. If you look at it, you know it's a race car. So, at what point during this car's evolution did it go from being, your everyday kind of lost in traffic Dodge Stratus to a serious endurance machine like it is right now?
So actually the race car as it sits was originally a street car. I bought it. It only had like 35,000 miles on it when I bought it back in 2000, probably 12 or 13. And I put a turbo on it back then, and I street drove it all the way up to about 190,000 miles. So I already had the chassis that I knew worked. I drove the bags off that thing with the turbo on it, and it just took it. So I just decided that one day to just strip it down and cage it.
Okay. Well, that leads us perfectly into let's get into the car, the setup, the chassis, everything, because it's obviously quite the machine.
Yeah, the car as it sits now is powered by a bone stock 6G74. We have a Garrett GTX 3582 single turbo on it now, running 12 pounds of boost. It's powered by Haltech, a 2500 Elite ECU, and we're using a mostly factory F5 manual transmission in the car still. The suspension sits on D2, two-way adjustable coilover suspension, and quite a few custom fabricated control arms to endure the stress and length of these races.
Okay. What about the when I first look at the car, the first thing I notice from the dyno picture is there's a lot of aero to it. So talk us a little bit through some of the aero stuff.
When we first built the car and then in the different series we ran, they actually didn't really allow us to have aero on the car. So that actually kind of led us into what a big problem with this platform was its handling. We recently switched to this Lucky Dog series, and they allow us to run. It's almost an open rule book. We can run whatever we want as long as it fits within the confines of the body. So we ended up putting a big rear wing on it. We put a full underbelly tray on it, and we went from not being able to really turn into the corners to we can outhandle Miatas and BMWs now, no problem. So the aero package was one of my favorite upgrades that the series allowed me to run without taking penalty laps.
That's definitely a game changer when you think about how much the Stratus must weigh from the factory, and to be able to handle like that. That's really cool.
Absolutely. The car curb weight when we first started racing it was like 3,100 pounds, caged and everything. This this car we got down to with me sitting in it full of fuel were 2,500. Yeah, so adding the arrow really helped because the car just got really light. And with adding the arrow, we were really able to just keep the car planted to the ground because of we took so much weight out of it. So the arrow
Right.
really did help.
Okay. Adding aero plus, putting it on a diet definitely seems to help these cars go around the corner.
Absolutely. I tell all my other co-drivers, the cheapest weight reduction is a diet for themselves because the time it's taken to chop the weight out of there, it's costly and time takes a lot of time.
Alan, I want to go back to what you said, that this is a straight from the junkyard 67.4 bone stock. What drove you to the 67.4 as opposed to the factory 67.2?
When we first started the racing, we actually did have a 67.2 in the first car we had, and we actually really didn't have any problems with it, except our first car was heavy, and the 67.2 just didn't have enough behind it to really pull. So we decided on the 7.4 after that, first mostly because that's what the rules allowed us. Over the course of a few years, we've gone over surely our fair share of engines, and when they allowed us to go to a bigger motor, we pulled the 7.4 and really kind of turned up our engine program.
Awesome.
We decided, oh, we just ran a way bigger motor. The 7.4 really helped kind of pull the car, and that's all the rules would allow us in that Champ Car series.
Gotcha. So, for those who maybe aren't familiar with the differences in 67.2, 67.4, how difficult was it to get this engine in place of the 67.2?
What is very convenient is the 7.4 is almost a direct swap. There is just a couple modifications you need to make to, like the coolant jacket crossover, uh, and that is literally almost about it. And then just a tune. That motor is direct bolt in. When you
Wow.
go to a 67.5, it requires a little bit more work just on even the electrical side of it, but still very doable. It's a direct drop in.
The 67.5 definitely seems to be the future that everyone seems to be having fun with. So, is that something that you guys are considering?
So that it does lead me to, we actually did run a high compression 67.5 motor for years, and that motor actually, it totally ripped. We ran 110 octane through it. It was a 13-to-1 motor compression, and we actually won a championship even with that engine back in 2023. But shortly thereafter, we lost the motor at a race at Rockingham Motor Speedway, and now we had a race car with no engine, and remembered we had an old 7.4 just sitting on the stand, and me being a turbo guy just decided, well, to keep the same power, we did a 7.4, strapped a big turbo to it, and just let it rip.
Love it. Love it. Love it. So, there's so many different aspects when it comes to this car. I mean, the engine, the suspension, the tuning, the aero. What part of this build would you say took the most time to R&D to get perfect, to get the most out of, shaving time off your lap?
The most trial and error, I'd have to say, was definitely our engine program. Between my father and I, our first few engines, I'll admit they didn't last long. Our first completely self-built engine, we made it through the dyno and about 20 minutes of racing, and she got locked up. Our second engine we built, we almost made 2 hours, and then it did the same thing. We turned the rods purple and bearings got tight. But the third engine, that one, that we decided to kind of go forged pistons, forged rods, high compression. We decided to just get way better stuff, and that was the ticket. We put hundreds of race hours on that third engine and claimed several wins with it. So the the most development time surely was in our engine program.
Okay. Well, speaking a little bit of the engine program and tuning and getting everything right, for me, my curiosity is how do you, obviously circuit racing is a lot more than just peak horsepower. A 1,000 horsepower car that can't turn isn't going to turn a lap very well. So, how do you prioritize power delivery over torque and, getting everything right to get the most where you need it going around the circuit?
So unlike a lot of other forms of motorsports, a balance of fuel economy and raw power is critical to the car's success. Finding that balance can be tricky, as there is still a lot of strategy that does play out through the race. In these racing series, our biggest handicap is how much fuel they allow us to carry on board, which is about 24 gallons. We are also limited on the length of driver stint, so finding that balance of turning the most laps without pitting for fuel becomes a huge contributing factor to achieving even these peak power numbers. We found that rarely does the fastest car actually win these races, so actually prioritizing the driver's abilities to turn lap times and fuel economy is really paramount in success in endurance racing.
That makes a lot of sense. And obviously, reliability has a big part in that. You can't run laps if you're in the pits trying to fix something.
And even I try to always say keeping four tires on the track. If you have 30 seconds off in the grass because you're landscaping, that's not gonna. You can be 3 seconds a lap faster, and 30 seconds off takes 10 laps just to make that mistake back. So it's just driver consistency is huge in trying to just maintain a high finishing position. It's not even about just raw speed and incredible power. It's consistency and just keeping four wheels on the track.
Yeah. So, being consistent and keeping the engine together, what RPM does we think of the 6G engine as a kind of a lazy engine. So how do you get the most out of this 6G engine and without killing it, I guess would be the best way to put it.
Yeah, so you're not kidding about the lazy part. When we get, horsepower is nothing to be even impressed with. These 6G motors are kind of lacking in the horsepower department. So what we try to actually do really is utilize like factory camshafts because that keeps our power band low. With that same topic, the lower the RPM, obviously, the less fuel we burn.
Mhm.
So typically with our new turbo setup, we do make power all the way up to probably 7,000 RPM if we need it. But we do try to shift closer to 6,000 or less because when it drops our RPM down to say 4,200, the engine's already making peak torque and the turbo's at full spool.
Oh, wow.
So keeping the RPMs down, I think, has been a huge contributing factor to our engine's longevity. Because we're not cranking 7,000 all day, we're between that like 4,000 and 5,800 is kind of our sweet spot.
Okay. And then as far as keeping the bottom end together for the 6074, is there anything that you and your dad have learned over the years to just make these engines live as happily as possible and, being basically abused for a very long period of time during these endurance races?
Yeah, absolutely. Proper cooling we've found in the engine itself to be very reliable. Everything from, we had to custom fabricate under the nose bumper ducting to force air through the radiator, making sure we have a belly pan under the car now that really helps extract the air out of the engine bay. That has been, proper cooling on these. We race Daytona in April. It's 100 degrees outside, and also even we go to Road America, we've raced in the snow. So getting these cars with proper cooling systems without either overcooling or even not cooling enough, um, that's been the only way we've been able to maintain a healthy, engine life throughout these races.
Okay. Well, as the car overall, Alan, have you found something that seems to break consistently, like maybe lower control arms or something like that, that maybe those with a Stratus or those with a 3G can know something to look out for?
Yeah, so a couple things come to mind actually. When I had my family racing, we seem to have a habit of going through transmissions. It's important that you use like my brother thought it was just a race car, so he just was like not clutching it so much. And you got to remember these things are street cars. You can't just really rip on them and race them like it's a NASCAR. So like, just taking your time with shifting and using the clutch, that's important. That really saved our transmission program. And also in the rear, our cars do have a small front control arm that holds the wheel forward. And we've definitely had to modify that arm in specific because we kept breaking them, and that would just shove the wheel back into the well and end the day. So that's literally like suspension wise the only thing durability's sake that needs to be addressed instantly because when we added downforce and we added racing tires to this car, we're putting stresses on this thing that it was never intended for. So surely beefing up like that rear control arm, that was probably that's what comes to mind first.
Okay. Well, Alan, we've heard people who circuit race come on here and talk about how important their suspension setup is and how they've shaved so much time by just changing out suspension and fine tuning the suspension and doing nothing else to the car. So, how do you approach suspension setup for a platform that people normally don't race? The Stratus was basically a commuter car when it came out.
Sure. So what limited us at first was the rule book. We had to kind of develop and design our suspension originally to match, like, they wanted factory measurements and factory locations for all these suspension arms. So our approach had to be a bit unorthodox. Like our first car, we actually had a Ford Windstar minivan springs up front. Has
Oh
to get
wow!
we had to get the spring rate up, and actually that car drove pretty good, and we had a Coney insert inside of a stock strut to just stay within the rules of it being like a factory looking piece.
Hmm.
Also, just being front wheel drive in a rear wheel drive dominated world, it was tough to hang with these proven platforms because on a fundamental basis our lines are different. So um, we just had our hands tied behind our back in that first series we raced. When we switched to Lucky Dog Racing, the handcuffs were removed. We switched to two-way adjustable D2 coils, and we were able to start fabricating custom arms that were just much stronger, and that has helped a lot in terms of even maintaining more reliability and just the car to handle better.
Okay. Earlier, Alan, you said that the Arrow has, improved the time so much, but would you say the Arrow has been the biggest change that's led to the biggest gains, or would you say it's engine suspension, or maybe even a brake upgrade?
So I actually kind of went sidebar on this one. I think the biggest gains came from not so much a place; it came from seat time.
Okay.
Aero, brakes, that all that stuff obviously helped, but when we went from being just a really beginner team, and now between like John and I, we have probably close to 1,000 hours of seat time each. That now when we show up to a track, we are seconds faster than we were when we started.
That's awesome.
Now when we're making adjustments to the car and adding modifications, yeah, sure, we're knocking off, like the point 0.3 and point 0.5 per lap increments, but just from getting seat time and experience has truly knocked off seconds, far above and beyond like what any individual modification has.
Wow. Okay. So, Alan, you talk about going to different tracks, Road America, Daytona, kind of all over the place, certainly different bank angles and everything else. How sensitive is this car to changing those setups going between tracks that are so different?
So, of course, we've accumulated tons of data throughout the year. And like you said, when we do like these higher speed tracks, I mean, or we have to do like a tighter, more technical track, we pretty much just have a short and long track kind of baseline that we show up to these tracks with. Depending on weather conditions, it truly changes, I guess, how we adjust on the car. Um, but if we've never been there before, we just start with like our baseline of either it's a tight track or it's a big power track. The car itself is not overly sensitive. What I love most about the Stratus is it is very easy to drive. It's very forgiving. Just short of making a total mistake or hitting another car, there is the car does handle really well, and it's kind of tough to make a mistake. It's a really well-rounded car now.
That certainly makes the driver's job easier. At least you hope.
It's a confidence builder too. When you go out on track for the first time and you just see everyone slipping and sliding, say in the rain, especially like with our aero package, where we can just literally freight train by just about everyone because the cars it's easy to drive.
Wow. So, speaking of easy to drive, Alan, what does the Stratus do exceptionally well in the corners?
So the Stratus, anywhere near stock form, I'll admit it doesn't do anything well in the corners.
Mm-hmm.
It's heavy. The factory alignment just don't cut it. Our corner speed surely was our biggest hurdle to overcome. What it does best, and because we kind of we're definitely at the pointy end of the field when it comes to power. And so what it does best surely is corner exit. If we come out of the corner next to somebody, we're gonna pull them on the straight. We already know that.
That's awesome. So, would you say that corner exit is kind of where you gain the most respect from the other drivers on the track?
From other cars, absolutely. Like we do have people that come up to us, say they're if we go to a new track for a track day and we do
Yeah.
our first session, there will be almost a line of people coming over just wondering what just happened to them because they just can't believe that this thing blew their doors off. So that is like one of the most fun parts of it,
Yeah,
from
definitely
a other
having the
driver
underdog.
aspect.
Yeah. Well, Alan, from the driver's seat, how does the car feel compared to a more modern or even a purpose-built rear-wheel drive race car, or any other car that you've been in?
So I've been in a couple kind of like factory, I've been in a C8, C7, I mean Corvette. I've been into some kind of more modern purpose-built cars, and at this level we're competing, I'd say any of these cars in this top A class, they are purpose-built track machines.
Mm-hmm.
The couple of the other modern cars I've driven, like a friend of mine has a Alfa Romeo Quadrilafugo, for example, has nearly double the power our car has. It's a lot heavier. I mean, it's fun to hop in and really throw it around. But when you're at the pointy end of the field with these endurance races, all of us are required to have very well built, well driven, and reliable cars. So I pretty much would compare. I mean, I'll go alongside a GT3 RS all day if I had to. So if it's a modern, purpose built race car, like I think we're right on par with any of them.
That's really impressive. Wow.
We race everything from like S197 Mustangs. When we did our championship run, we were facing off hard with it was a 911 Porsche Carrera, like 2011 year style, and that's who we were competing with to win the championship, and we ended up edging them out. Won the race on
Wow.
the last day, and so if it's these things are purpose built track cars.
That's really cool. So the field definitely has a little bit of everything.
That's the most fun with this endurance racing. Of course you've got your BMWs, Miatas are kind of everywhere. You have lots of kind of one-off cars. Mini Coopers are there, V8 swap Lexuses, Mustangs. There's a handful of those. Porsche. There's a couple Porsche teams. Boxers are really common, but the Carreras they come on, and the variety of cars is what makes it fun. Like my best friend drives a S90 Volvo from like 1994,
Mm-hmm.
and that thing will straight boogie. And me and him are best friends, and we're always competing in A class because now we're both turbocharged, and the big array of cars in these series is what makes it the most fun because you never know if that Miata next to you has a K24 swap. or like this RX-7 has a Mercedes M112 V6 engine in it. Like the disparity of cars is, and then we're in a Stratus, so it's really cool to see these really obviously fast cars kind of competing for these overall wins.
Yeah, for sure. That's really cool. I like that aspect of it. You kind of get to see a little bit of everything and get to kind of root for the underdog.
Yeah, that's right. Like I said, the K24 Miatas, and then I mean there are some spec Miata drivers. A lot of us are, we're amateurs. I call us professional amateur drivers because we all have a lot of seat time. But we do have like celebrity, like Randy Popst is a, Car and Driver magazine test driver, and he's a factory Volvo driver from the 80s and 90s. He races in Lucky Dog. You just never know who you're racing up next aside. So that's truly what makes it fun.
Okay. Well, you talked about how the Stratus is so good at the corner exit. Does that make it more suitable for the fast and flowing track types instead of the tight and technical ones?
We definitely consider the Stratus to be a more power car. The chassis has very low drag coefficient, meaning it cuts the air very well at high speeds. Daytona, Road America, and VIR surely suit this car best. We have since improved our suspension a lot, making the tighter tracks more appealing. However, when we run these high powered tracks, that is surely where the car excels the most.
Okay. So one thing, Alan, that we haven't talked about so far is tire wear and brake temps. What are you doing to manage the brakes and tires to get the most out of, being able to survive these entire endurance races?
And again, that's truly the ticket is keeping this car on track all day and just not burning through your consumables. Um, it did take a long time to develop, and we all know the most expensive part of owning a race car is going to be the tire, brakes, and fuel. Unfortunately, all these just require on track testing to figure out because people have all different styles. Our first outing at Road America, for example, we smoked 12 sets of brake pads, we
Oh
destroyed
wow.
4 calipers, and we went through 6 rotors all within 16 hours. So the next time we showed up, you can guarantee we had a full-on Brembo package with brake cooling ducts. It's just trial and error.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that leads me perfectly into my next question, Alan. What would you say is the most demanding part of the race weekend for the team? Obviously, these races are very long, and obviously changing out consumables all the time is going to wear you out pretty quickly. So, in your opinion, what do you think it is that wears the team out the most?
So yeah, the shortest race we do is 7 hours long, and we typically do at least one 24-hour race every year. So the
Wow.
most demanding part of the race weekend is that it really requires the entire team's undivided attention throughout the span of the entire race. We're just a small team. Each and every one of us have a job, whether we're in the car or preparing for the next pit stop. Thankfully, between John's family and mine, we do have an amazing support cast that keeps us fed and hydrated. And I even always joke that the ladies' work is even harder than the boys on race weekend.
They got to do all the behind the scenes stuff.
Yeah, right, and that's without all that help behind, we wouldn't be able to hoist that trophy at the end. So
For sure.
it's truly demanding just on everybody's, like I said, undivided attention. That's what's tough.
So, Alan, after racing this car for as long as you have, what was the first race or event where you come to the realization, like, oh my god, all this work that I've done with this car is paying off. This car is truly competitive.
So I always knew that the Stratus could win something, and I just never knew what. And so throughout the years of development, I'd say like even on our second year, say 2016, we started to kind of consistently crack into the top 10 overall on a consistent basis. In my opinion, that's pretty early on. We realized that the car can do it. We just needed to get our team right. We needed a little bit of luck for the car staying together the whole race. And that's when when we started cracking that top 10 pretty consistently, that's when we really knew that, keep developing this car, keep developing the team. We're going to put this thing on the podium someday.
Love it.
This episode of the MitsuTimes Podcast is brought to you by 3SX Performance. Since 1999, 3SX Performance has been the world's premier source for everything Mitsubishi 3000 GT, GTO, and Dodge Stealth. They have proven what they sell by building and tuning their 3SX cars in-house, which at one time held the world record in drag racing for the NA and TT, both front-wheel drive and all-wheel drive. Check out their products and services at 3sx.com.
So you talked about, running championships and winning different events. What has been the most memorable on track, either battle or moment so far with this car?
A few moments came to mind when I first thought of this question, but there was a clear number one that occurred somewhat recently. We had a race at Barber Motorsport in 2024, and it started in the pouring rain. There were a lot of fast, heavy hitter cars there, including that driver like Randy Popst and many actually spec pro Miata teams. It was our first race with this new turbo system, and honestly, to start, we didn't expect much. Early on in the race, we started about 7th position, and John was able to pass this Randy Popst for the lead, and then we held on to it all day long, including pit cycles. 6 hours into the race, we found ourselves leading it first overall by about 40 seconds over second place.
Wow.
Our engine was losing oil pressure, and luckily with about 30 minutes to go, a full course caution came out. However, second place then was able to come to our back bumper. We were only leading second place by 0.9 seconds. With 4 minutes to go, they decided to drop the green flag. So we're almost 7 hours into this race, and this Miata is on my bumper. And we had a 2-lap shootout. I stopped reading the gauges, didn't even look at the dash no more. I just drove the car as hard as I knew how. And we ended up winning that race by 3 seconds. So I pulled, maybe 3 or 4 car lengths on them. We didn't have any radio communication between myself and the pits. It was just me, the Stratus, and this Miata in my mirror. And between the perfectly executed pit stops all day, amazing driving from John, and a lot of luck, we actually pulled out that win. It was incredible.
That's awesome. That's such an amazing story. It's one that needs, like its own documentary or something.
It's so like I've been always wondered about doing like a mini series because the adventures we kind of go through is, it's truly remarkable what we've done with this, and it's a story that obviously I'll cherish forever.
Yeah, for sure. Well, Alan, you talked about how this car is often surprising the other competitors. Do you feel like this car represents an overlooked side of Mitsubishi performance?
The 3G Eclipse and 2G Stratus is absolutely overlooked. I think it is a very well engineered chassis, and drivetrain and engine wise, it is very reliable given the proper maintenance. I hate that it never got kind of the drive behind it, even in the aftermarket world, that I think it deserved. Excellent car, clearly overlooked, and with a little bit of development, we got ourselves a pretty serious track machine. And when we unload that car off the trailer, the competition knows it. They know they're racing for second place now because we're going to win this thing.
Yeah. I love that. So do you think it's just the lack of aftermarket support, in your opinion, that we don't see many other Mitsubishi powered cars out circuit racing besides the Evo and a few DSMs?
I definitely think that has a big part. I have seen actually a couple 3G Eclipses kind of enter these endurance races, and they don't stay long, I think, because of the lack of, and I just call it like an easy button. There is no, you just go online and buy these parts, and they're bulletproof.
Right.
It's not a turnkey, buy, race, win kind of car. So that's what made it tough, and we just don't see many of these, especially the V6 chassis, running in circuit racing because there's no easy button.
Right. You're gonna have to do some cutting and welding.
It's going to take some fabrication, a little bit of know-how, and then I'm just big on the competence side of it. If the only way you're going to learn if something worked is if you try it. So I'm just big on just trying things and swing for the fences and see what happens.
Well, Alan, to you personally, what does it mean to represent, the long history of Mitsubishi's motorsports heritage in a non-traditional chassis? I mean, I feel like if you were out there doing this in an Evo, you would kind of just be some other guy on the track, but you're out there doing something a little bit different.
I try to be the best ambassador for motorsports in general that I can. If anyone comes to me with a question on how I do something, for some reason, like a lot of people try to hold their cards close to their chest, and I really try to help because if there's more faster competitors on track, that's going to in turn make me better.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm big on it, just kind of helping spread the information. And I never liked the blending in. It'd be easy to just buy a BMW and compete up front. I think that is surely a lot easier than taking this one-off kind of side chassis that no one's ever heard of and start to race with it. And that's the fun part is when other teams realize what they know what they have in their Mustang, and we just pull them on the straightaways. They know what it takes to build a car like that, and that's the fun part of being unique and not just kind of blending in amongst other chassis.
Yeah, I definitely I can relate to that a lot for sure. So, Alan, let's say that someone out there they're listening to this, they're Googled Lucky Dog Racing Series and they want to get involved. If someone wanted to maybe start off with a 3G or something more unconventional, where should they start and where should they definitely not cut corners when they're building this car for these long endurance races?
Sure, information to prepare these cars for wheel-to-wheel racing, I'll admit, like that was always a barrier to entry, even to me. I just didn't know how to start. I got in with another team and just started kind of renting a seat through that other organization, that BMW team. And so just getting to the track and finding, so like this champ car is an excellent series. Lucky Dog Racing League events are excellent. Just go to the track and talk to the people. Learn what it takes to get to the track, understand their tech process. Every single person in that paddock is willing to help you get ready to go on track.
Mm-hmm.
There is a website, motorsports.reg, that you can look at your local racetrack and they have track days listed for you to join. Get some seat time, and if you find out that's what you like, then look at their rule book, read it, and just start building. My first race car, including the car and the entry fee, I had $2,700 in it. I finished 33rd out of like 86 cars. And that was just a time that I realized, like, this is where I'm spending all my money now, is to just go out and race with my friends.
Got addicted right away.
Just got addicted right away, and for the seat time cost per hour, we realized it was a 14-hour race, and including the car, I had $2,700 in it. So we all know racing's expensive, and when it comes to 14 hours of seat time, you just go out, have fun. Your seat time is not going to get cheaper than that.
Mm-hmm. Well, where should they definitely not cut corners when they're thinking about this car? Because in my mind, I'm thinking, almost every 3G I've seen has had a pretty rusty undercarriage, and maybe that's not the one to pick for these endurance races.
Starting with a clean chassis is surely advantageous. Although some people joke about these old cars, if they're rusty, that just means they're lighter weight. So that leads me to say, like, I think a lot of people have the same answer here. The safety aspect of fabrication is no job to take lightly. Um, you can't win these races if someone gets hurt in the car. So don't try to save money by cutting something out if it will somehow compromise the safety of the car.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of reliability, buy a repair manual for your car. bolt check and torque just everything on it. Like people cut corners on, I call it's a German torque spec called Gutentight. Like get a torque wrench, get a real number on it. These factories have put so much money in these books to tell you what to do. Just listen to them. They're smarter than us.
Yeah. Yep. Definitely. And you never know when the person before you was working on it and they forgot to tighten down this or put the bolt back in that.
Absolutely, and that even still happens to the best of us. That's why it is important, in terms of just not cutting corners, bolt checking, and don't just start cutting away at a chassis and then hope for the best. Kind of, you need to be very calculated in the build process, and then when you bolt it together, just make sure that it literally doesn't fall apart, and I'll guarantee you'll have a fun time.
Love it. Well, Alan, if you could hop in a time machine and go back and start this program all over again, what would you do differently?
I feel like we had a really slow trajectory. We started with a bone stock Stratus. We bought an Eastwood tubing bender. I was working alongside my race car. When I would take it to work, and in my own warehouse, I would be working on my car. And then it started as that, and it slowly turned into we pretty much have a performance shop here now. One thing I wished I realized earlier was how important, I guess, the weight reduction truly is. So our first race car, I mean, I didn't really do any weight reduction to it. It was a tank, and our lap times reflected to us how much of a boat it really was. But when we first started, nobody really knew how to race, so having a heavy car kind of helped, because if we had a delicate one, any sort of accident we got in could have resulted in a very different future for us. So
Yeah.
I guess that if I were to start over again, my first car, I would have just trimmed more weight out of it, because that also then improves reliability. The car doesn't have to work so hard to carry 3,000 pounds around for 10 hours.
Makes sense. Well, Alan, what's next for the team and the car? Are you guys going to, continue to develop different parts for it, or are you going to keep racing in the same series, or are you just looking forward to getting some more seat time?
So we're doing a big change on the chassis over the course of, I think, this year, and I know we're trying to follow some legendary footsteps. We are in the middle of an all-wheel drive conversion and an
Wow.
engine swap. We anticipate it to take about a year to build, but when we come back in 2027, we do plan on reclaiming our title as the Southeastern Endurance Cup champions. We do also want to, so with this all-wheel drive swap and engine swap, I want to try to dedicate some more time to more, trying to start setting some records. And your site actually has prompted me to, and I see there's some fast circuit racers out there, and I want to see if I can put the Stratus at the top of every one of them.
Love it. That's exactly what I want. Yep. Give you some motivation to go out there and, try to knock some people down.
That's it. That's because I thought I had. We're still on a street tire, so I've seen there's some other members on here, and they do have usually more power, or they just have better tires. So I do want to dedicate more time to, like, I'm gonna try putting slicks on the car and see if I can really start laying down some lap times. That your site has almost single-handedly motivated me to try to build the world's fastest circuit car possible.
Love it. That's exactly what we want. So, besides the all-wheel drive swap, are there any changes plans for the engine, or are we just gonna kind of keep it where it is? And then, what about for the chassis itself, other than the all-wheel drive swap?
So all-wheel drive in itself is obviously a big undertaking,
Right.
but I think there have been a couple. We all know Justin Zolsdorf from Brodsky. Few of us have done all-wheel drive on these chassis, so I'm to some degree follow their footsteps in keeping the car a Mitsubishi. We've had several ideas of just converting it rear-wheel drive and going with like a T56, and it's like
Mhm.
I have kind of accepted, and I want to pay homage to the fact that it's Mitsubishi powered. There's certainly more pride in that. So going all-wheel drive is important for us. We're going to switch to a Haltech R5 ECU system that can hopefully do all traction control and front rear bias, all that fun stuff. We also want to get onboard live streaming available to try to really ramp up our experience for people outside of the car. So those
Mhm.
are kind of the major things that, so my family's kind of from all over the country, so they all always, middle of the race day, they're messaging me, following me on Race Monitor for our, how we're doing for the day. Having a live stream, I think, would really amplify, a fan's, experience in following the team.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I definitely think it's special to have those people who support you to be involved as well.
It was, it's shocking I thought I was kind of doing the Stratus for myself and that not many people really paid attention, but once you start racing a little bit and even like my family specifically and other competitors, everyone's taking note. And it's fun. When I first started, it was, oh great, it's cool to see a new car and new Stratus, who would have thought? And now that we've been winning races, it's fun to see some of the competitors' attitudes change of, now I'm going to take a podium position away from them, and it kind of grinds their gears because you got a built RX-7 and you ain't going to beat a Stratus. Good luck. We have a good time with it.
That's good. Some good, healthy competition. That's what it's all about.
Definitely.
So it sounds like this Stratus is already pretty successful, but whenever you're going up to the next step with this all-wheel drive build and R5 and all this stuff, kind of making some major changes, because I mean, there's certainly a whole body rewire for the R5 is definitely a major change. All-wheel drive swap, definitely a major change. What do you think it's going to take getting this new combo in the future to podium consistently at these events?
You almost touched on it already, that these races are won in the garage. Car prep of these things is 80% of the job. I do joke, nobody showed up to the Super Bowl and just wondered how they got there. Competing for these championships and these race wins, 80% of it is from behind the scenes. It's that prep work in the garage. John John comes over a lot to my race shop and spends a lot of time really help wrenching on the car. And then my father, he's got a shop by him, and he kind of has like the engine program that he does at his house. So it's
Mhm.
nice to get this thing to consistently podium is just it's a lot of time, and it's car prep. I think with our attention to detail, especially going with this all-wheel drive swap and the R5, I've learned so much on like the body harness and wiring the car. And then with John's help especially, we're fully confident in when we pull that car into the trailer, we're going to be ready. We're showing up to win this race. And and that's just a shout out to the dedication and time in the garage that we spend getting this thing ready to go.
For sure. There's no telling how much time in the garage saves, time in the pit or time down on track.
And so that's even how I always say when we're racing, it is a whole lot harder to pass cars on track than it is in the pits.
Hmm.
If we can have a better pit stop than everybody else, I mean, we'll gain or lose more positions if in the pits than we do on the track. So that is again a testament to the car's preparation. That when we come into the pits, everyone has to have their job. They need to execute and then just get in the car and have fun. Having fun and kind of staying loose is what helps a lot too. When you try to force it, it ain't gonna happen.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So yeah, like the car prep, and then well, John and my father's unrelenting uh, dedication to the race team is surely a big contributing factor to our success.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. Alan, I know I didn't prep you for this question, but you said that the all-wheel drive swap take about a year before you're back in competition. What do you think is the next realistic event that you plan to attend with this car?
So the next event I do plan on, I'm thinking, is Barber Motorsport Park. It'll be in December of next year. So
Okay.
we're shooting for the end of 2026 because the Southeastern Endurance Championship series starts in February at Carolina Motorsport Park,
Hmm.
and we're hoping to get some time on the chassis before, because we're coming out swinging. I think 2027 we're gonna try to win that, that championship for a second time. We won it in 2023, and we're gonna come back and try to do it again.
Awesome. Love that. So, Alan, where can people find and follow the team on social media so they can kind of keep up with how the build's going during the off season and during this all-wheel drive swap, and also to get some, kind of behind the scenes of you guys getting the car together and before and after these races?
Yeah, absolutely. Facebook is our main hub. Our team name, Crash Management number 232, is the name of the page. I, I'll try to even kind of post more often, but I do, to some degree. If you want to message me, I'm always happy to answer anything I possibly can. Um, but I have, well, like everyone else, right? We all got a job, and
Right.
I got two kids that require a lot of my attention, so I don't get to post online like I like or that I want to. Um, Post race, we do post. We have a YouTube channel, that's called Crash Management number 232 as well. Um, that we post a lot of in-car footage and lap times. So if you want to check out the any of these racetracks even and kind of see how the front wheel drive maneuvers, YouTube is. We have like 30 videos on there, so of different racetracks, and just turn it on in the background and enjoy.
Yeah, I've been watching over the last few weeks since we've kind of got to know each other, and you've been submitting the car for different tracks and even the dyno list, and it kind of grew my curiosity into what's going on behind the scenes. So it's been really cool to check all this out, and I definitely encourage people to go out and do the same.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. It's been a wild ride, and you said we built that first car. Our first race was in 2015, and I do look back on myself thinking, if we did race hard, we tried a lot. We did not win a race until 2023 when we won our championship. We won
Oh wow!
4 out of the 6 races that year, and before that, prior, we had never won a race. So persistence and tenacity is what really, just never giving up. I always knew the Stratus could win, and I never pulled it off until I was like 8 years into our operation. And if I can give any word of wisdom to anyone thinking about starting with our chassis, is just keep trying, because you will get there.
Love it. Well, Alan, you've already mentioned a lot of names and people who help you out on the regular. But is there anybody else that you would like to give a thanks or a shout out to helping you get where you are or getting the car where it is?
Yeah, first, I want to give a huge shout out to each and every member of the crash management team throughout the years. There have been a bunch of names I didn't get a chance to mention, and without them, the team's growth and even my personal growth would have been far different. So big shout out to my past friends and everyone that helped with the car. Um, they just said we wouldn't be here without each and every one of them. Wally Becker, the crew chief, and he's our lead engineer. John Morris, our co-driver. Dean Clattenburg from Clattenburg Racing Fabrications is a chassis builder in Salisbury, North Carolina. You take a streetcar to him. He actually does a lot of Trans Am chassis building and circle track racing. So if you are in need of fabrication in North Carolina, Dean is your guy. David from RPW, I do a lot of business with him. He's from Australia. Many people in the 3G world might recognize his name, but he's been a huge help in terms of getting kind of some of these random performance parts we need. Casey Harris, he's a tuner friend of mine that helped me a lot in the beginning, and he still helps me to this day troubleshooting things. Joe from JM Automotive, a performance shop in New York, he has supplied me with lots of parts, poly mounts in specific. That he's a Eclipse aficionado, and he loves talking about these 3Gs. So call up Joe from JM Auto. He's great. Kathy Fuss, and she's the owner of Lucky Dog Racing League. Big shout out. She provides us a safe environment to race, 7 hours, 14 hours at a time. She's great. And then last but surely not least, the Champ Car organization, including Dan Diggs and the Chiswick family, they almost single-handedly welcomed me into endurance racing with open arms, and without their help in learning how to build a race car, again, I wouldn't be where I am today. So just big shout out to every single person that's helped, because it's created a really fun thing for us.
Right. I love it. The story of this car and your story is just so inspirational, and it makes me want to get on Marketplace and find something to get into endurance racing. It's been a really cool journey.
When I realized I wanted to build my own car, I found a Dodge Stratus on Facebook Marketplace. It was $500. It didn't run. So I paid $500 for the car. Entry fee was like $1,300 for the race. I only had enough money to buy 2 racing tires for it. I mean, with very little money and a lot of time, we actually were able to put a car on track and finish the race. And that was, if that's not motivation for anyone if you think you want to do wheel-to-wheel racing, it doesn't get cheaper, it doesn't get more fun than Champ Car and Lucky Dog Racing. Those are the series you need to look at, and just come out and have fun.
Yep, definitely. Please, if you think your chassis is not worthy to do any type of motorsport, definitely look into those ones that Alan's talking about. And even if you just want to do some autocross or something with your 3G Stratus, go out there and just do something. Just go out there and have some fun with it.
That's it. Seat time is, like I think I mentioned earlier, seat time is the best mod. You don't need a supercharger. You don't need even a cold air intake. Until I went turbo, I still had a factory Diamante intake on the car with just a nice filter in it. You don't need the nicest thing in the world to race. You want to have fun. Just get some seat time and learn it. That's the biggest mod that I loved gaining myself, is just get behind the wheel and go race.
Yeah. Yep. Well, Alan, thank you so much for coming on here and telling your story. I know it's been a long one. And I have to see this car in person. I will definitely link up and, find you somewhere out in the motorsports world, and we'll definitely have to link up and, meet face to face. But again, thank you for coming on here and sharing your story. And I hope that we inspired some other guys to get out there and do some racing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me, and anyone's welcome anytime to my shop. If you find yourself around here, or if you find yourself at a racetrack with one of these racing series, just come on over. We'll probably fry you a burger. We'll try to kind of meet up with anyone, and don't be shy. Come on out to the track and have some fun.
Thank you for listening to the MitsuTimes Podcast. Check out our Instagram and Facebook for daily updates. Get added to our list by going to MitsuTimes.org and clicking Submit a Slip. Thank you to all of our sponsors.